Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. And you can always find us online at katb.org. And listen, don't forget to find us on our Facebook page at Living Well Radio. And also you can find our podcast available to download and follow called Living Well. So make sure you find us there as well. My name is Cammie and I'm joined by my little scratchy voice Betty over there. Say hi, Betty.
Hi, everybody.
Can you squeak one out? You poor thing.
I have a cough drop in my mouth. So.
Oh, we're going to get you through today.
I probably won't talk very much. So.
Oh, are you sure about that, Bossy Betty?
I don't know. I always say that, and then I end up talking a lot. So
I know. We appreciate that so much. Look, we have got a great show in store for you today. We have no stranger to our studio joining us, but we are so excited about what she's going to share with us. We've got Gwen Adams. She is the Executive Director of Priceless. Say hi, Gwen.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to touch a little bit on getting some updates with Priceless and their awesome recent event, the Barefoot Mile, but she's also going to be sharing with us today just another role that she plays in facilitating something called Huddles, and we're not talking about sports. So she'll be sharing with us a little bit more about that. So why don't you give us an update on the Barefoot Mile and what an awesome event that was and how that all transpired.
Oh, just completely humbled by the community really coming together, lots and lots of churches and businesses. We had, of course, the mayor there and both Senator Murkowski and Senator Dan Sullivan and our First Lady Donna Walker there just to cheer on from several different organizations the efforts against sex trafficking in our state. So Priceless is one of four organizations being represented there. And I was just so encouraged to see, 4 or 5 years ago, it seemed like the biggest job we had was the community awareness piece. Like people would just constantly say, are you sure sex trafficking happens here in Alaska? I think that only happens in Cambodia or Thailand. But to see our community become more and more aware of this and kind of stand together, lock arms, and say, absolutely not, we're not allowing that here, has been so encouraging to me.
Yeah, wow, that is absolutely just tremendous, the awareness that it brings. I mean, I don't run into many people that really haven't heard about Priceless, or at least the awareness of human trafficking existing here in Alaska. So that's definitely a battle that's, gaining ground. So that's excellent.
How much money did you actually end up raising?
Altogether, it was a little over $200,000, and of course that is split in a variety of different ways with the organizations that were represented there. So.
But you had a good turnout for people to walk, too, didn't you?
They just kept coming, and I mean, people taking off their shoes. And one of the things I had shared at the Barefoot Mile is making sure we get lots of pictures, because it's so incredibly important when we're walking with a victim for her to know that people care about her, that she has worth and value, and to show her pictures of that many people willing to take their shirts off and walk on sidewalks downtown because they care about this issue and care about her is really important. And by the way, there were major parts of that sidewalk that were exposed to aggregate, and it hurt. So it was sacrificial too.
Well, I know that Tom wore his suit. His flamingo suit.
He looked fabulous. I know. Yeah, I was very impressed. And I'll show girls pictures of that suit and say, this guy will dress like this so that you find hope and freedom. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal.
It was a big deal. We saw him at the concert the night before he was advertising the Barefoot Mile.
And his toenails were painted with pink flamingos as well.
Oh, my goodness.
Just a side note.
He was bright. That's been all over Facebook, and he was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that is something, isn't it? And he was even training for this Barefoot Mile. He was practicing it up and getting some hard services going. So he was pretty passionate about being involved. It was fun to follow.
My theory is that he really likes to wear the suit and would if it were acceptable, that's what he would wear all the time. He was enjoying it maybe a little too much.
He enjoyed it at the concert, too.
Yes, very much so.
Everybody was very excited about it.
Oh, lots of pictures. I mean, he could not get off that stage, just selfie after selfie. So that was lots of fun. Anything else you want to share in regards to Priceless as far as just kind of a recent update?
Well, Priceless is growing at a phenomenal pace, and make sure you like us on Facebook, and you can follow us that way. But we've added some great new teams. We've got a prison ministry outreaching to sex trafficking victims who are behind bars, and a street outreach team that's new too. We've got teams that go into the strip clubs now and are doing some outreach work in that way, as well as our cyber team, and mostly excited about launching a program called Chosen next month. So one of the things that we saw with Priceless is that most of our survivors had spent time in the foster care system and had aged out. And so Chosen is a specific ministry to reach out to aged out foster care kids, partnering them with the same kind of care and mentorship that we do with sex trafficking survivors, and give them family at that really difficult time of life in that transition.
Such a pivotal moment in any of our lives, really, thinking back to the choices we made at that time. And I can't imagine just kind of being thrown out there at that time to figure it all out.
Imagine being 18 and you're done. You're done with services from the state, and you're on your own. And the reason you were in foster care is because you lacked family.
Right.
So just really on your own. And one of the remarkable statements that we had, one of the aged out foster care girls that was informing us about maybe some directions in the program, is she said she just wanted one person in her life that wasn't paid to be there. So I'm really, really looking forward to the church and our whole community having this opportunity to love these kids in this way. There are about 700 aged out foster kids a year, so it's an enormous problem. 40% of them end up homeless. So I'm excited for this opportunity for the church to be the church.
Wow.
700.
That's just staggering, that statistic. Well, I'm grateful that you have found this need and willing to step in there and fill it, and we look forward to seeing what happens with that ministry. What a great idea. Time to step up, for sure. So tell us about Huddle. What is a Huddle?
Well, as passionate as I am about what I do with Priceless or Chosen, it is driven by the mere fact that I am passionate that the church be amazing at making disciples. It really is our one job. We were told to go into all the earth and make disciples, not plant churches. And if we go and do our job, make disciples, well, the church happens. If we go about planting churches, discipleship may or may not happen. So I think it's putting the horse before the cart and doing the very thing that we were called to do. And so Huddles is just, it's a simple tool that we have found to be very effective at being a part of discipleship. So basically what Huddle is a way of getting together in a small group where we are known and we know each other. It's all about relationship. We show up with one another honestly and do something that we call check-in, and really spurring one another on to be able to hear God speak and act upon what he's telling us to do. So those are two very important parts of Huddle. So we often use the word kairos. Maybe many of you have heard it. But basically that just comes out of the New Testament. It's a Greek word for a moment in time, out of Mark chapter 1, verse 14, where Jesus says, "The time has come. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Repent and believe the good news." And the time that he's referring there is this moment in time where God is breaking into our kingdom. And our response to that is to repent, which means turn away from, and believe, which means take hold of. So we spend our time together in this small group, and I'll tell you a little bit here in a little bit how we do that, helping each other understand where the kingdom of heaven is breaking into our world. What are those moments for us, those kairos moments we call them? What is God saying? We process those together, give feedback to one another, and then act upon it. And here's the tricky thing about God speaking. We believe he's always speaking. He's always speaking to all of us, and his word is 100% true and perfect and good. But the minute it hits my gray matter or my sometimes confused heart, it can become skewed. And it takes community. It takes others to really be able to discern the truth. And so we might be in our group saying, I think this may be what God is saying. And someone else in the group can say, boy, I'm hearing that too. I can confirm that. Or they might say, no, that must be the Chinese food speaking, because that is not at all what God would say. So in the context of community, we can help each other understand, what is God calling us to, what is he saying, and how do we act upon that?
Wow, I really like that part of the accountability of acting on it, because I think sometimes we can just really get comfortable, in small group community, just kind of discussing the things of God and all truth-based, but really activating it in our own personal lives is where I think the challenge is. And I like that idea of holding each other accountable to really activate what it is we're hearing God say in our lives.
So we use this phrase too. We say low control, high accountability. But at the end of the day, none of us really change without accountability.
Right.
We just don't. When Mark and I have a serious change we want to make in our marriage, maybe it's around a budget or something, we bring in outside help, as we're not great at holding each other accountable. But that's true in our faith walk too. When God speaks to us and tells us to do something, he usually doesn't speak to us and tell us to do stuff that's super, super easy. It's not the no-brainer thing. Sometimes those challenges are life-altering and take some real work. And to have someone come alongside us and just check in, how are you doing with that? Can I pray for you? Give us an update. Can make all the difference in the world. Sometimes it just takes that one person knowing what's going on in our hearts, knowing the challenge that we've had, knowing the area that we want to grow and move forward in, to be checking in on us, and that can just turn the whole thing around. I mean, we all have stories, lots and lots of examples of being in endless small groups where we just all go around, give our opinions, and marinate in our own mess for months on end without that challenge to move forward. And so 6 months in, and someone in the group is still dealing with the same thing they were dealing with 6 months before. So Huddle really works hard to not leave you in that place.
Did you mention, Gwen, that this, and I could be wrong, is this like a virtual small group gathering, or do people also get together face-to-face?
You can get together however you want. Like I said, low control, high accountability. What we want is to make it as lightweight, low maintenance, because we want people to show up. In fact, I've often said I'd like to just rename our whole program Just Show Up, because that's the key. And for so many of us, the number one thing across our country with women is busyness. And so we've tried to remove every obstacle that we could so that people could engage. And we have a pretty high bar that you show up every week. I mean, there needs to be a pretty tremendous excuse if it's not something you can pop in and out of, because the trust is so important. So we've done, I think most of my huddles right now, and I know Betty, yours too, are virtual, or we log in online. And so there's an hour set during the week for a particular huddle. I log onto my computer, all the gals show up in the same conference room or whatever, and in 1 hour it's over. And we've had a tremendous time. There's lots of times kids will be popping in the camera on laps, or in its beautiful, chaotic way, but we have made that commitment. So without even leaving my home, quite often, if it's an early morning huddle, I may actually be in my bathrobe with a cup of coffee.
I like that. That's the way to do it.
I in the huddle that I'm in, sometimes women are just getting off work, so they're sitting in their car joining that way. And then there's actually a woman that has made arrangements at work to not be busy at that time. Her coworkers have agreed to cover for her so that she can participate. So I love Huddle. I've told Gwen over and over how many times I love Huddle.
Yeah, for all the bashing of technology nowadays, this is one way we have found technology to be unbelievably useful and
you don't have to leave your house.
Yeah.
And like she said, when we had one early in the morning, many, myself included, would show up in a bathrobe and hair uncombed and teeth not brushed. But it was a great way to start your day.
Yeah, that's neat. Now, you kind of touched on this already, Gwen, but if you could just expand on a little bit, what is it that you think is the value that women are getting from participating in these huddle groups?
Well, first of all, we all need to be known and know others. It's not enough to show up to church once a week or participate in a big group Bible study and feel like we're really growing in community. And in Huddle, it's not a teaching time at all. It's not a Bible study. We expect that you're getting good teaching and you're engaging in Bible study somewhere else. It is really that one place where you show up, you get to tell the truth about your life, and be loved and accepted and challenged forward right from where you are.
Wow. So are these women that are just in a particular church? Are they women from everywhere? How are women hearing about this? Tell us a little bit about maybe the demographic of who's participating and how they're hearing about it.
Well, we are using the Huddle model in Priceless quite extensively. So if you're mentoring in Priceless, you've had opportunity or you've been invited to participate in Huddle. So we have lots of huddles that are really mentor specific. I have a couple huddles that are just leaders, other women who are leading in churches or businesses around Anchorage that participate. I'm in one huddle that's national. There's women across the country that we all meet together, and we have a shared common interest, and we get online, and that's what's so wonderful about Huddle. We don't have to be in the same location.
Yeah.
If you're on vacation, you can still pop in and be a part of the Huddle. So it's different. I get asked a lot of people ask if I would disciple them, and I have found that this is the most effective tool for me, is just to be able to say yes if I have openings in Huddle. Say, yeah, I would love to do that. I would like for you to join a Huddle. That way I'm not one-on-one meeting in coffee shops all over town discipling people, but they're growing in relationship with each other. And I like to tell all of our Huddle leaders, I mean, you'd agree with this too, Betty, it's so transferable. I would like everybody in my Huddle to sit there and think, this is so easy, I could do this, so that over the course of time they start their own huddles. So it's for a season, and we expect that you will invest in others in the same way.
So how would, I guess let me back up, is there huddles for men as well? Do you
Yes.
see this kind of growing amongst men as well?
We've got some huddles that are couples, huddles that are men. We're starting, there's actually a worship leaders huddle
Really?
here in town, with several of the worship leaders from across the city are in Huddle together. We have a pastor's huddle that's starting up. There's several couples huddles. So
is the
anybody.
concept of Huddle something that you started, Gwen?
No, it was born, I think Mike Breen started it, but from the 3DM movements.
Okay.
And so it was a tool that they use in conjunction with discipleship. So I've actually got to experience and be a part of Huddle through 3DM movements for a couple of years before I started leading huddles. And they challenge you in 3DM to be a part of a variety of huddles. So I've been huddled by strong male leaders and in a mixed group before. I've been with all women. I've been with women leaders. I've been with women who are just brand new in the faith. And so getting to walk with people in a variety of different ways has been hugely helpful. It absolutely just rocked my world. And I felt like there was this place that I could log on every week and be known and show up with the truth and talk about things that I didn't really feel like I had any other circles to talk about them in. And, my leaders in Huddle have been loved me enough to not leave me in the same place and then follow up with me. And the areas that I knew God was challenging me forward, I knew would be brought up the next week. So I was pretty determined to not show up to Huddle again and say, nope, I didn't follow through. Yeah.
Wow. So how do women or men find these opportunities to join a Huddle? Where would they go online to connect?
Well, for me, in our limited scope right now, we have several great Huddle leaders. So there are spots, but the entryway, at least through my organization, is to go through the Priceless training.
Okay.
And that's the next step out of training. And the training is really important because the Huddle is built off a series of shapes that basically, I'll call it bar napkin gospel, but there's shapes that we draw out some really core tenets of the faith that they're done in shapes so that they're easy to explain, and a 5-year-old could catch the concept and explain it to someone else. We really want to keep it transferable. But in our huddles, those shapes are really pressed out. So there's a shape around the rhythms between work and rest, or how life change actually happens, or the progression of discipleship. So we really ask that people go through the basic training first, and then when they step into Huddle, that way we don't have to cram Huddle full of teaching lessons. So the next training for us would be coming up in August. And just because someone goes through our training doesn't mean in any way that they're going to be serving in Priceless or now they're going to be walking with sex trafficking survivor. It really is a chance just to cultivate your life with Christ and learn a new way of walking with Him.
Mm-hmm. Very valuable training. In fact, I went through it and, haven't found my place in serving in Priceless in a capacity, but still very valuable training. So I would highly recommend that to anybody in any sort of ministry to take part in that. So it's a great entryway to getting involved in a huddle, and I appreciate you sharing that. What would you say are some good tips to facilitating one of these huddles, or really any small group? Is there anything just off the top of your head that you could share as like, hey, that's a really important tool for a facilitator? Or is there a facilitator in the huddle? I guess I should start by asking that.
Yeah, the huddle always has a leader, and that leader is, they're basically keeping the group on track. And moving them forward. We really want to make sure the group doesn't become, like we were talking about earlier, a place where we just kind of all get together and marinate in our own mess without that challenge. So the leaders have all been huddled. They've all been through the training and feel a specific desire to lead out in that way. So yes, well-trained leaders matter a great deal in this. For people who want to facilitate something like this, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about patterning our lives after Jesus and the way He lived, right? Listening to the Father speak. And so the shapes that we press out are all allow us to take a closer look at how Jesus lived, how He did it. We so often pay attention to the miracles of Jesus, the words of Jesus, but not really pay attention to the way He walked, the way He lived. So if our main job is to make disciples, then we want to learn from the Master and watch how He did it. And so he did it by spending time with people, getting all up involved in the mess of their lives, right? Not just teaching them, but He walked with them, lived with them. So that's kind of the basis of Huddle. I would highly recommend starting with the book, Building a Discipling Culture by Mike Breen. You can find that online. You can download it on Kindle, but all the shapes are spelled out in there and some of the basic core tenets. And we've innovated on that a lot. You use Huddle differently than maybe explained in the book, but that's a great starting place.
So there's a lot of talk about how, our virtual world that we live in can sometimes be a hindrance to how we relate with one another. How do you see this huddle concept when you participate in it virtually as kind of serving still the person without maybe, hindering them from really dealing with more of the face-to-face relationships that a lot of people seem to be kind of avoiding these days, if I could say that?
Well, I love creating opportunities for those that I'm huddling with to get together face-to-face. That's still incredibly important. So we usually have little luncheons or get-togethers. I like to meet everyone, occasionally just one-on-one. And so those will happen in coffee shops and around. Actually, I've really been trying to maximize time and think about the way Jesus might have done life. And I don't see Him spending a lot of time sitting in coffee shops having conversations. He's probably more likely just to invite somebody to go along where He goes. So I may be spending a lot of my time these days, which I'm really loving, is just inviting someone to come over and be with me in my world. So if someone calls and says, I need to spend some time talking, it's probably on the way to somewhere, maybe a trip to Costco, maybe an errand that I have to run. Someone just comes along and participates in my life with me. It's about giving someone access to your life. And so as weird as it sounds and as cold and sterile as it can sound, giving someone access to my life virtually on a conference call has allowed me to be a lot more consistent, and I'm actually inviting them in a small way into my home.
Sure. I
don't show up to coffee shops typically wearing my bathrobe, but I do show up to huddles that way. So I don't know. There's a little bit a little bit of peek into it that way. I also back up Huddle with a group text. So our group stays very closely connected, or several of my groups stay very closely connected with a group text, and we share prayer requests all week long through a group text. So I think when we stop and think about how can we give people maximum access to our lives without busting boundaries and while preserving the commitments that we've made to family and so forth, I say use technology in every way possible to achieve that.
I will have to say this. I was concerned about this, the very same thing, Cammie, because I've done Huddle where the group of ladies get together in person, and I've done a couple online. And when I first started doing them online, I thought, I'm just not going to like this because you're not physically with the person. But I love Huddle online. It's turned out to be a great resource, great encouragement for me, but also a great tool to teach other women. And we also stay in touch throughout the week. I've only met one of the ladies from the Huddle I'm in right now, but we intend to get together.
And it doesn't, Betty, speak to this too, but it doesn't seem to be a barrier at all for the level of intimacy you can share.
No, and even when you meet someone face to face for the first time, it takes a time or two before the trust is there, and it's no different doing it online. Actually, I've had ladies say, well, I don't know y'all well enough yet to share everything, but then later on down the line.
Well, and I make that point just to really give it that voice, because I think the element that is so important to maintain is the art of conversation. If you just shoot an email off or you shoot a post off on some social media, you don't have to deal with really a response to that. Whereas when you're having conversation, which it sounds like that's a crucial element of participating in a huddle, you're kind of dealing with that response, that give and take effect that I think is what helps shapes us in our walk with the Lord as well. So I appreciate you ladies making that point, because a lot of people want to talk down about technology and these virtual relationships, but really it comes down to just what is the quality of the conversation you're having through technology. So I think that's fantastic.
And it's fairly simple. You just log on.
Yeah, and there's the program that we use is called Zoom. There's a little cost to it, but you can actually share a whiteboard on there and draw out one of the shapes, or I found it really easy to use.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
we have shared. We've taken pictures of things and share it with everybody.
So just to clarify, Gwen, what I hear you saying is this isn't really something where our listening audience can just go to a site and then figure out how to get plugged into a Huddle. It's really more of a process and an element of Priceless and going through that mentor training. Am I hearing that right?
You are. From my perspective, but if somebody were listening and thinks, man, this is what I really want to get involved in a Huddle, there may be opportunities with other people that I'm sure Betty can even connect you with, or the fastest way from my perspective is just go through the training, get it done, and we'll offer that opportunity to you if that's what you want. I'm really careful about not just doing a broad, Huddle sign-up deal. I usually sit down with each person that I'm bringing into my Huddle and ask a couple of questions, like, am I somebody that you can learn from? Am I somebody that you're willing to submit to over the course of the next 10 weeks? Because there is a high commitment and there's a high level of challenge. So it's not just a run-of-the-mill pop in and out small group. There's commitment behind it. We try to make it as easy as possible, but there's a commitment behind it. So if somebody's really wanting to get involved with that, you could go to the Priceless website, www.pricelessalaska.org, and sign up for the training coming up in August. That's definitely one way in. But I would also encourage you to get in touch with Betty through Alaska Christian Women's Association, and she would probably be able to put you in touch with some Huddle opportunities as well.
Excellent. So that's a pretty good summary of how women can get connected and kind of get through the process of getting into a Huddle if that's what they desire, or learning more about the mentor training opportunity through Priceless. Appreciate you summarizing all of that. Anything else you want to add before we close out this show, Betty? Nope, you're good over there. Okay.
So I didn't set you up to get 100 calls of people asking to be in your Huddle this week. So be patient, maybe, right?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Gwen. We sure appreciate any opportunity that we can steal a little bit of your time in your busy schedule, and just value you coming in and contributing your thoughts and just sharing with us today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for letting me share my passion.
Our pleasure. And that's another episode of Living Well, and we appreciate you joining us again this Wednesday. And you can find us here every Wednesday on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. And you can find us online in a few different places, katb.org, our Facebook page, as well as iTunes podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you next Wednesday.